Welcome to our international press review today with Paul Barber. Paul, starting in Kenya, riots there, obviously very serious recriminations. How are the press looking at it?
Yes, well, Mark, we'll look at the Daily Nation newspaper to start off with. It's extremely angry coverage, very extensive coverage, going through all the pages, and extremely angry coverage of how the police have been dealing with this latest round of opposition demonstrations. Obviously, supporters of Raila Odinga, the opposition candidate for the presidency, who many feel the election was stolen off. Of course, the latest death toll, 8 in Nairobi and Kisumu. The paper has many striking pictures of the police cracking down on this, but they've also highlighted the tragic tales of innocent people, unpolitical people who've been caught up in this awful vortex of violence, children too young to vote who've been killed, a 10-year-old boy called Salim who has received a lot of coverage, who was shot whilst playing out in the streets.
Is this all part of the emergence of the kind of tribal differences coming to the fore and expressing themselves in violence as well? Is this what this is about?
Yes, that's a big part of it, and there's a piece in the East African magazine which goes into more depth about that, into more background, just about how the church, academia, the corporate sector, everything is utterly polarised in Kenya. And this has been burning away for years and years, and it's been eating away at the country, and now this has really come to the fore. And the only way to really tackle it, they say, is with constitutional reforms, and systems need to be put in place that will encourage power sharing, and also hearts and minds need to be changed, hearts and minds of ordinary Kenyans, and that could take many, many years.
And obviously Kenya previously held up as a bastion of democracy and of stability, but obviously, as you say, beneath the surface, all these things simmering away, now coming to the fore.
It's a real tragedy.
Tell us next about the story between the row between Russia and the UK regarding the British Council, the big cultural organisation which which carries British views across the world and helps
teaches
people
English, and much like the Alliance Française.
Big row.
Yes, it's an extraordinary row. Well, it's the latest row between the British and the Russian governments. The two offices in St. Petersburg and Yekaterinburg have been forced to close because of intimidation of their staff. Many of them have been called, many Russian staff members, has to be said, have been called in by the FSB, the security services, for questioning. Now, the British ambassador and the British Foreign Secretary, David Miliband, have said this is ridiculous Cold War tactics. And the Russian government say, well, the British Council have been behaving illegally. They set up their offices illegally.
That's the Moscow Times, obviously an English language paper, saying
Times, yes,
British Council gives up the fight.
Gives up the fight. They've caved in, and they also, the Moscow Times also goes back, they also mentioned this is much to do with the Litvinenko murder in London, the Russian spy.
All linked,
this
the whole
kind
thing.
of started this all off. But they also go back to 1945, when the British Council was first set up in Moscow, only lasted for 2 years then, and got closed down at the beginning of the Cold War, so, you know, real echoes of that. Now, the British Guardian newspaper has a column by Simon Jenkins, one of the main commentators on that paper, and he says that the Russians now understand that power has changed and the nature of diplomacy has changed. And he says Russians understand power doesn't lie with the Foreign Office anymore, with the striped suits and rolled umbrellas. Real diplomacy has moved out of the embassy to the sandals and corduroy department, to the chamomile-sipping, clog-dancing herbivores of the British Council.
Paul, tell us lastly about these floods in Dubai, which kind of knocks me out because I just think of Dubai as being a wonderfully hot place with lots of sand and floods. You just don't think about it, do you? What's happened? What's going on?
Images here from the Daily Mail, actually, the British Daily Mail, that look more like parts of Britain at the moment.
That's
Dubai.
Like
Wiltshire.
That's Dubai, is it?
That is Dubai. It's the worst worst flooding in history, in Dubai history, and they also say under one caption they call it "Floody Hell," typical Daily Mail style. That is
Floody Hell. You got away with that one, Paul. Well done. Thank you very much. There you go, Paul Barber with the International Press View, watching Front Side Cat. Stay with us.